The First Amendment Practice Clinic is one of the most important efforts that the Thomas Jefferson Center undertakes. Through the clinic, students at the University of Virginia School of Law earn academic credit by working on the actual cases that the center is involved with. In the 17 years that the center has been operating the clinic, we've gotten involved in a whole variety of cases in courts around the country, including the U.S. Supreme Court. This past year we filed 3 briefs in the U.S. Supreme Court.
Some of our cases are big cases that are in front of the Supreme Court, and we're writing an amicus brief. So we're not actually representing the parties, but we're looking at what's going on, trying to find a new perspective, seeing what new we can bring to the table. Sometimes we're in contact with the attorneys who are actually representing the parties in those cases, sometimes not. We've also worked on cases, however, where we are directly representing the parties. The most interesting for me that I've worked on all year has been where we represented Sue Reisinger, who is a reporter who was trying to get some files released from the court in a case involving AIG and the SEC.
Both the Securities Exchange Commission and AIG were united in opposing this motion by the center. But in fact, we were able to gain access to these documents. The court just ruled in our favor. I was amazed in the AIG case about how little supervision the clinic students who worked on this case needed. From the very beginning, they asked the questions of the reporter, they did the research, they defined the arguments that we were going to make, and they wrote the brief.
I think it's really added the practical experience to my education. All my classes are great, and I love hearing about different cases and what happens, but you really have to get into, there's a motion, and then there's a reply, and then there's a response. And then before the appeal, there's a motion for a stay, and then a reply to that. These little details that you kind of skim over in the procedural posture when you're reading a case, and just learning how to do all that.
The students in the clinic get a real sense of finding something that will be helpful to the court. And we think that's an incredibly important lesson for them to learn as attorneys, which is not just to do the sort of kitchen sink mentality of throwing every possible legal argument you can, but really identifying the arguments that you think are going to be the most successful and the most useful to the court in deciding the case.